Steuart Pittman operates Dodon Farm Training Center, which is actually right down the road here in Maryland. He is an accomplished horseman in the show world. Steuart founded the nonprofit Retired Racehorse Project in 2010. Recognizing the adaptability and versatility of the thoroughbred, he then created the Thoroughbred Makeover event, now in its 5th year, showcasing off-the-track thoroughbreds in multiple disciplines. Steuart is one of the driving forces behind the commercialization of off-the-track thoroughbreds in this country. Thank you. Steuart?
Yeah, the Retired Racehorse Project is a little different from a lot of the programs in other countries, and I realized that when I went to Newmarket and met with everybody. But the thing about this group that really shocked and amazed and impressed me, it is becoming global. And when we started our organization, one of the first things I did was go to the ROR. I never told you this. We ripped off a lot of what we did from the Retraining of Racehorses website in England. And I think we were a couple years in at that point, but it really helped to guide us. And then when people from all five countries where Sheikh Mohammed is breeding horses came to the Thoroughbred Makeover, the first year we were in Kentucky, it was fantastic to see that, and the level of enthusiasm was great. And then you can't help but do good things in Newmarket. So I'm really excited that you guys are here right in our backyard. My background, as she said, is in training horses outside of racing. And that makes us a little different because I see that as a good thing, because the whole idea of everything that we're trying to do is to get more people retraining these horses and working with these horses. But I always have to ask myself, and our board always has to remind itself what the questions are, what the problems are we're trying to address. And one of them is, even though it's not my responsibility, because I'm not leading the racing industry by any means, but it is the public perception of racing as inhumane. Just remember these, and we're going to come back to them after we get near the end. Low demand for thoroughbred X-race horses in riding sports. So not enough people want them in whatever the sports are that they excel in. They can always have higher demand. Too few farms and trainers retraining and rehoming thoroughbreds. And in our country, it used to be that the best trainers in the hunter and the jumper world, even some dressage and certainly eventers, we're all retraining thoroughbreds, and we're all selling them. And the horse dealers went to the racetrack. And then the value came down, the European warm bloods came in, and they all went and started buying their horses in Europe, or or breeding horses, and having purpose-bred horses for these sports. So that hurt. So we need more good farms and good trainers transitioning the horses. Another is that the last racing owner of the horse is the person often with the least investment in the horse. So in this country, especially with the claiming game, the horses that come to our Thoroughbred Makeover usually last race at Finger Lakes, or I don't want to criticize anybody's racetrack, but the low end of racing. Those tracks are where the horses retire because they get down to the claiming racks. And the owners and trainers of those horses have less invested and have fewer resources, but they're the ones that are being told that they need to solve the problem and make sure the horse ends up in a good place. So that's a problem, in my view. And clearly the problem is that when we look at unwanted horses in America, the term has been used by the American Horse Council. Not everybody likes the term, but it does describe the problem. Not wanted by the industry. If they're injured of any breed, they're not wanted. That's not something that we're trying to solve, but the racing industry is certainly working hard on that globally and in this country. So those are the problems. So when we created the Retired Racing Project, Racehorse Project, we wanted to narrow it down, and we simplified it down to our goal as an organization is to build the bridges to the second careers, whatever they might be, whether it's nonprofit organization, professional trainer, on-track program, online horse listings, and of course to increase the demand for the horses. We looked at what we all knew, which is that the use of thoroughbreds in this country, and this is not true in all of your countries. Some of your countries do not have a history of using thoroughbreds in the sports. The European countries have been breeding sport horses for hundreds of years, or certainly decades. They're Olympic horses. They had their big fat warm bloods in show jumping when we were riding our thoroughbreds. We used to beat them then, but that's another topic. In our country, we have a long history of everybody fox hunted a thoroughbred. Our best dressage horse was a thoroughbred, Keen. He was 4th in the world off the racetrack. Our show jumpers were all thoroughbreds, the good ones. And our show hunters, you couldn't get a ribbon if you were not on a thoroughbred. So we looked back, we actually got from the U.S. Equestrian Federation formerly AHSA, the stats, the percentage of their registered horses that were thoroughbreds, and it went from about 40% down to, dipped even below 10% over between the early 80s and about 2010, which is when we did this research, and I'm sure I don't think it's increased. It may have increased a little in recent years. We would like to think so. That gives us something to work with. If you think about it, if your goal is to increase demand for the horses, it's kind of like bringing back the VW bug, right? You get the old people like me who have a history with thoroughbreds, and we really want to bring them back just because we grew up on them. So that's great from the marketing perspective. The other thing that we did, and I would encourage any country who is developing a program, trying to create a strategy as opposed to a program, to look at what works. So we surveyed, because we created over time a pretty big network through social media and our website, email lists. We put out an online survey of people who have a thoroughbred, one or more thoroughbred outside of racing, and we asked them about 5 pages worth of questions. One of the big ones was how you got your horse. We also asked them what they paid for their horse, what they do with their horse, and some things like that. And this is the bridges to second careers that we're trying to increase, that we're trying to grow. And a lot of it is direct from racing owners, about 34%. A lot of it is a second sale that came along after the racing owner, so they bought the horse from somebody who bought it from the race, or wherever they got it. So that's a horse that's already been retrained to some degree. Small percentage from auction. Sale barn, we put that as the professional resellers, and some of these are overlap, and it's hard to tell. And about 13% were from nonprofit organizations that transition racehorses to second careers. And that 13% actually was lower, and it was growing in the years that people had acquired their horses. And then we asked them, of course, what sports they do. So if you want to market these horses in your country, I believe you go to the people who already like them, and then they're your ambassadors. So you go to those sports where they're excelling, and you get Boyd Martin to come speak at your thing because he loves thoroughbreds, right? So we asked them what sports they do, and it was eventing was highest, that was in the yellow. Then hunter jumpers is the next biggest. Then dressage, trails and recreation, English, fox hunting, trails and recreation, Western, and other. And that was obvious to us, but it sort of confirmed for us what we needed to know about who we needed to be going after. Not that the smaller disciplines we should ignore. One of the things that we realized in the beginning was that the Western disciplines in this country, there are more people who ride Western than English. And so if we can figure out how to turn the Western folks onto thoroughbreds, there's going to be some real progress. You can't read this. I won't go through all this. But the point is that to get to where we are today, which is in 2017, we started in 2010. 2009, we did a symposium before we were even an organization. And we did a lot of experimentation. And the experimentation was to figure out how you can demonstrate to these people in all these sports that the thoroughbred horse is the most trainable of all horses, definitely the most fun. That's what I always tell people. They may not be the best movers. They might not jump the very highest, but they are more fun to ride than any other breed. Nobody can deny that, I don't think, in this room. And so we had to figure out a way to show it. And, we'd heard of the Mustang makeover, kind of catchy, kind of similar in some ways. Trainer competitions, and we really wanted to promote good training. And we really wanted to have people see the process of a good trainer transitioning one of these horses. So we did a symposium, 350 people showed up, and that shocked us. That was just an educational event. We got our C3 status so that we could raise money and be able to do more education and promotion, created a website. Then we did a trainer challenge with just 3 trainers, and they came to the Horse Expo in Maryland, and they selected a horse each, and they got on the horse in front of hundreds of people, and it had literally not been ridden since it raced, each of these horses. And they knocked everybody's socks off because they went the correct lead both directions, and they walked, trotted, and cantered. And then 5 weeks later, they came to the Pennsylvania Expo, and they were really kind of broke. They were jumping a little bit, and they were doing nice dressage. And so people followed that online, and that was the beginning for us, was the videos that went out and the social media that went out. We evolved into a thing called the 100-Day Trainer Challenge, 100-Day Thoroughbred Challenge, and then we did the Thoroughbred Makeover at Pimlico for 2 years, which was more of a demonstration event with a smaller number of horses, but the symposium and the seminars. And that drew 700 or 800 people those 2 years. And then everybody wanted to be part of the Thoroughbred Makeover. And the reason they wanted to be part of the Thoroughbred Makeover is because everybody thinks they're the best horse trainer. I am, I'm the best. So we thought, well, let's let them in and let's do it. And we put out applications to enter, and we thought maybe we'd get 50, 75 horses, and do it at the horse park. And we ended up with 300, the next slide I think tells you the numbers, 300 horses, and it's been growing. And it's partly because we dangled $100,000 in prize money that we hadn't raised yet in front of them. And we did eventually raise it. And that just gave the event sort of a big event feel. And then moving it to the Kentucky Horse Park meant we could do 10 sports all in one place. We could have something big. So, and it was the Mecca. It's like the pilgrimage to Kentucky if you're a thoroughbred-loving person. And now we've got the makeover still happening. So in addition to the makeover, there's more to it, to the organization. And if you think about it as, again, an effort to engage the horse industry and these horses to move more of them and increase demand, you got to do a lot of stuff. So we have all of our online stuff. We have, I'll go through some of this, but not in much detail. We have the makeover. We have the magazine, which you, I think, are sitting on maybe or have in your hand. It's quarterly, and it's really a good read. It's really some good articles in here, I think, especially the ones I wrote. And then events, where we still go out to these horse expos, which are amazingly horrible to sit through. Like, you sit at your booth, and everybody comes up to you, and they ask you, what's wrong with my horse, and why can't I get my thoroughbred to do this? And but what's good about it is that they are the entry-level people. They're the entry-level horse people, and they go there to learn about natural horsemanship and whatever it is that's in front of them. And they're young, some of them, and they evolve, and they become trainers, and they become, the future of the horse industry. So we go to these things, and we still put on makeover previews and events that will engage people and make them realize how trainable these horses are. And people are still amazed, even though we've been doing it for 6 years. You'd think they'd know by now. Okay, so the makeover itself, $100,000 in prize money. It's at the horse park. It's a 10-month training competition. So people send in an application as a trainer, and we do not approve people who don't have experience in the discipline they're applying for, showing at the level that they're going to be showing their thoroughbred, because we don't want them to make a mess of it. They apply in January. The competition is in October. This year it'll be the first weekend of October. And so they have that amount of time to prepare their horse. The disciplines, and you can select up to 2 for your horse. It doesn't have to be just 1, but you can't do all 10 because your horse would be exhausted. Eventing, dressage, show hunter, show jumper, field hunter, competitive trails, working ranch, polo, barrel racing, and freestyle. And the videos that you saw, the video you saw earlier, those shots that were in an indoor arena were from the makeover finale of horses in those different sports. The freestyle is the most fun because you can do anything you want, and it's, if anybody's ever seen the Mustang makeover, you see horses doing tricks, and it's really cool. We have the guy who did all the movies, all of the horse movies you've ever seen in Hollywood. There's this one guy who trains them all. His Tillerson, and I can't remember his first name, and it's not Rex. I keep thinking Rex Tillerson, but that's not the horse trainer. Is training, trick training for the makeover. Fun stuff. So it's grown. This will be our 3rd year, 17, at the Kentucky Horse Park. Accepted trainers went from 350 to 480 to 580 this year. That doesn't mean they're all going to show up. About 2/3 tend to show up. So when you go out and you get a horse, some of them haven't even found the right horse because they enter as a trainer. They won't show up. And then some of them will get a horse and they're just not ready to go to Kentucky and to show, which is fine. We discourage them from coming if they're not ready. But about 2/3 show up. Every one of them is investing a large amount of money into the transitioning of that horse. We figure it might average $8,000 when you add up the farrier, the vet. They're showing the horses at local shows before that. So over that 10-month period, $8,000 investment per horse that's coming out of their pocket, not out of the racing industry's pocket, which is great. So that adds up to millions of dollars, you can see there. Numbers of spectators we had, when you add up over the 3 and then 4 days the second year, 1,500, 2,500, and it's got to be 3,500 or more this year. We're going to do some things to make that happen. There are vendors, 80 vendors. Well, I can hardly read this. I know you guys can't. We have lots of seminars. It's a symposium as well. Expenses to run the event have ranged from $300,000 to $400,000, including the $100,000 in prize money. And we didn't make it the first year, but we made it last year. We actually exceeded it, and this year we're hoping to. And if you want to help with that, I didn't introduce Julia. Julia Otten over here. Raise your hand, Julia. Julia is working for RRP now. She's going to make sure that this magazine survives because she's going to sell ads in it and sponsorship. She's an all-race tracker. She trained at Laurel, and then she's actually been in a lot of your countries as a working student. She's one of these young people that traveled the world working on racing operations, farms. Okay, so we do try to look at the effect of what we've been doing, and we don't know whether, I mean, there are a lot of factors to the success, but horses are moving much faster. People are saying that when they go online, especially during makeover season when people are acquiring horses, that you got to move fast when you see the horses because people are buying them. Prices are going up, figure about 50% from what they were a few years ago. It's still not much. It's still, you know, $2,000 for a horse off the track, between $1,000 and $5,000. And another is which horses are being donated. If you're an aftercare organization, there's the downside of racing owners. Some of them are figuring out, especially at the cheap tracks, they can get money for their horse, so they're not donating their horse. On the other hand, to an aftercare facility, because they can sell it. On the other hand, the aftercare facility might be getting horses that wouldn't otherwise get help. So that value of the aftercare facility goes up if you're helping horses that need, you know, have a bowed tendon, need rehab. At least that's the way I view it. The little businesses and people that are in the makeover are actually becoming the real solution in my view, because they're moving horses. Some of them are doing it as businesses, some of it as hobbies. Obviously the entries are growing in the makeover, and there are lots of great things that are going on. We have some new initiatives that we're looking at doing because obviously the problem is nowhere near solved. But whether it's racetrack rehoming agents at some of these cheap tracks to help owners figure out what's the best solution for their horse, whether it's a trainer certification program for off-track thoroughbred trainers, similar to what a lot of disciplines have for trainers, whether it's horse-based subsidies like ROR is now doing, where the money for a vulnerable horse goes with the horse for whoever's going to train it, whether it's going to be nonprofit, for-profit, or hobbyist. So these are all really exciting possible things to do that I'm happy to talk to anybody about all weekend or all week, even the weekend at the Preakness. Do take a look at this magazine and talk to myself or Julia if you have questions.